Hello, everyone. I'm James Milan. Welcome to this DPCD update. DPCD is, of course, our Department of Planning and Community Development. I get to speak to Claire Ricker today, as I often do. I missed the last one, which I'm sorry about, but Claire is the director, of course, of our Department of Planning and Community Development, DPCD. Claire, nice to see you.
It's good to see you.
I hope you are enjoying some elements of summer, even though I know that your work is like dominating everything at the
Yeah.
moment.
Very, very busy, but I'd rather be busy than bored. So, it's maybe a little too busy, but I do enjoy the work. So even that is fun.
Even if, well, yeah, if you're going to err one side or the other, but I guess you don't have to err quite as far this way. But anyway, you'll get through, I am sure.
We will.
What is making Claire so busy, you might wonder? Well, let's talk about some of what that is. We will, in this update, address the Complete Street Prioritization Plan and get an update on that, and as well as the fact that FEMA, that's FEMA, our Federal Emergency Management, something, whatever the A is, they want to check the data on their new maps. We'll find out a little bit more about that. But we are going to start and probably spend the bulk of this update talking about a familiar but important, crucially important topic, MBTA communities. So let's start there, Claire, if that's all right. And what do you have to tell us?
Sure. So MBTA communities, wow, have we ever been busy? The working group is meeting weekly now. We've been back to the ARB a couple times, and then I think people know that we had a very, very successful public information, public participation meeting on June 8th. We had over 125 people come in person. And it was sort of an all hands on deck event. We worked with Teresa Marzilli, who is our community outreach coordinator, and she's fantastic. And then from my office, Talia Fox and Marisa Lau really helped bring that thing together, or that meeting together, right at the end. And so, kudos to my staff and also to the working group for all of the work that went into that meeting. People were engaged. They were, I think, excited to come to the meeting to see. We finally had a visual that we felt like we could have the public comment on. We've gone through several iterations and working drafts of a map, of a concept zone for MBTA communities. And remember, MBTA communities is a zoning initiative that is looking to add increased density, housing density, to cities and towns that are served by the MBTA. So, we had a lot of conversation, a lot of good conversation about, the proposed zone at that time. And I think, the thing that most sticks out to me is that I think what we heard and what we got some confirmation around was that this strategy of, sticking, trying to put this in around some commercial centers, off of Mass Ave, off of Broadway, close to transit. This is really what we heard in the survey that when we were surveying folks between these public meetings, and it's something that we were able to map. And I think people were pretty okay with the outcome. The thing that I thought was the most interesting is that at least at my table and a few others, I think I heard a lot more. People said, well, this seems really small. Can we do more? And we can always do more. Maybe not as part of this process, but I think, for me and for this office, even sort of getting thoughts around where some other areas might be, good to add some additional housing. And we're getting some new voices in the conversation. We've reached out to tenants of the HCA and really getting some interesting data, some interesting, comments, updates from folks that are indicating, yes, we do think, putting this around the commercial areas is probably the right strategy with regard to MBTA communities, but also let's continue to look at zoning as it relates to housing in other areas of town. And I just think that is a great springboard for us moving into the master planning process. For our timeline, that was actually our third public meeting. We've moved through this process. We've gone from, sort of the kickoff to doing a lot of education of folks around this. The rules changed sort of kind of midway through, even since the first announcement of MBTA communities. So updating folks on that, doing some visioning, and that was part of our meeting in March. Now we are in, an iteration phase. We have put together several draft maps, which are available on the MBTA Communities website. But this is really how you do this work: is you draw and then comment, and draw and then comment, and this is where we are. So moving forward, we've got about 6 weeks to finish up this project and bring it to the ARB in time for a special town meeting so that we can meet our regulatory timelines related to zoning and warrant articles, things like that. We will have sort of a last opportunity or the last opportunity to make changes to the map on July 25th. The working group will have their regular meeting at 7 p.m. I believe it will be a joint meeting with the ARB and the working group. And it's open to the public always. We have moved to hybrid meetings for the working group through the summer, so folks can start to participate remotely as well. But July 25th really is going to be our final meeting where people can come in and take a look at the map and make suggestions and tweaks because we have to start finalizing that and the zoning. So, the latest map that we have on the website, one more thing to say, the latest map that we have on our website is that, again, with this tight deadline, we are trying to make these maps as fast as we can. So some of the initial feedback we got from that public meeting, people said, why not Broadway? Let's put some more on Broadway. So ask the consultant to map a little more on Broadway. And as we're going through this process, the latest iteration of this map, which is one I think that folks are going to want to take a look at on the website, that has the comments from the public meeting, is also mapping 4 stories rather than a certain number of units. And so when you take a look at it, you can think 4 stories may equal a 4-unit building. It could equal 8, 12, any combination. So we're really starting to take a look at height, dimensions, things like that in these zones and finalize that, that as well. And so this is where we really are. Spend the month of July sort of taking a look at height, those sorts of things, and then have our public input session on July 25th, finalize a map, and then that will go in front of the ARB at their August 28th meeting. And that is when the public hearing will open related to the warrant article and the special town meeting in the fall.
Whew. Well, I actually have a somewhat vague recollection of when we first started this conversation, although those many months ago.
Yes.
And clearly, you're very, very deep into this process at this point. I do want to pause and just note that it is great that we are in the weeds that you have wanted to be, I think, for a while in terms of folks accepting these things are happening. We need to figure out how to do it the best way we can. You are fully in that public conversation part of things where you're, again, accepting public input, having it reflected in maps that people can see, and that dynamic that, again, I assume that you as a planning professional have been, that this is your bread and butter in a lot of ways. So congratulations on all that. I also just want to, note that I can imagine that as you say out loud, we have 6 weeks to go to kind of put all this together. There must be a little bit of palpitation in there as you imagine that. But thanks for, on behalf of the community, thanks for the work that you and your department have done around this. And again, for making sure that it is a public conversation at all times and that people really do have the means to give their input and make sure that they and their concerns are part of the process. So it feels like, I'm sure it has been a bumpy ride at different times, but it feels like, you could see the end and that you're feeling pretty good about everything that has happened so far. So best of luck with
Thank
these
you.
next, with these last steps leading up to July 25th and then beyond. But thanks for spending the time over these months to really kind of keep us informed,
Sure.
quite closely informed about how things are going throughout this whole thing. It's a very essential part of what's happening in town at the moment and going forward. So
Very, very much. There will be members of the working group at the farmers market and a few other events. They're hosting some library office hours, so folks should continue to check the website to see when those, when those office hours are, et cetera. And any questions you have or any, discussion folks want to have, we will be available, out in the community and of course, at our meetings and then, me in my office as well.
great. And, I think we spent a lot of time just now talking about MBTA communities, and justifiably so, but let us not forget that there are a couple of other important updates we want to get, one of them being on the Complete Street Prioritization Plan.
Right. So in order to stay eligible for Complete Streets funding, cities and towns are required to update their Complete Streets Prioritization Plan every few years. I believe it's 5 years. Don't quote me on that. But what our new transportation planner, John Alessi, has done is worked with the Department of Public Works to sort of figure out where we have projects that overlap and try to prioritize those along, with our Complete Streets plan. And so adding this other variable of, coordination with DPW and potentially leveraging funds is something new. It's a little bit of a new variable that we have put into our equation in terms of, Complete Streets prioritization. They presented 18 projects at the meeting. The feedback, the meeting's available on the website, and any feedback that we have. I think the most important thing that folks should know is that comments are open until July 7th. So folks will still have an opportunity to comment on the plan, the prioritization plan, until July 7th, and we hope they do.
Great. And lastly, we want to talk about these FEMA flood maps. I remember what that A is. That's, of course, Federal Emergency Management Agency, and they are the folks who come in when disaster strikes in a lot of ways. We are very lucky, I think I've noted with many other people over these last months and years, lucky to be here in New England where we are susceptible or vulnerable to fewer of those natural catastrophes than many. But nonetheless, FEMA has a role here. Can you please let us know what the story is with their map?
Sure. So FEMA has reached out to varying departments in town. I'm sure probably some other organizations as well. They are doing a flood map update. And they are seeking some feedback, some level of feedback eventually, and they're going to have a public meeting as part of this process as well. So folks can visit our website and get an opportunity to take a look at FEMA's map. They are not seeking feedback currently on the designated flood areas. If you have a comment on the area, that's not necessarily what they're looking for. That would be a future step. And that will happen, at the community meeting. What we are really looking for is feedback on the accuracy of the map and the data on the map, and any typos. If someone finds a typo or something like that. So it just should be, identifying changes or corrections to like non-technical information. Road names, things like that. That feedback, they are seeking feedback through July 10th. And again, you can access the FEMA, the FEMA questionnaire and map from the town's website. Now, FEMA has not established a date yet for the public meeting, but obviously we'll keep people informed and we will publicize as soon as we hear from them when they'd like to meet up.
Sounds like a call for all the avid or professional proofreaders out there, basically,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
All right. Anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I think, that's probably more than enough right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine you have much bandwidth for anything else, but
Not much.
all right. Well, in that case, let us just thank you as usual for your time. She is Claire Ricker, the director of our Department of Planning and Community Development, and she always makes time for these DPCD updates, which we very much appreciate. Also appreciate you making the time to listen in. This is James Milan for the DPCD update. We'll see you next time.